gotta get paint open because
Oh yeah, that's right. We're gonna be doing paint. Okay, I only have a trackpad mouse, so
that is
I'm gonna be
super fun. I'm gonna
here.
use. Oh man, I'm gonna have so much fun. So, I guess we could start. Oh, should I try my title screen? I'm gonna try my title screen. Okay, it's gonna be fancy. It's gonna be a transition.
Why
all right, welcome everybody. It is 3 Homos and a Pussy. We are today covering a video about why Shrek is queer culture, and I think we can all agree that Shrek is life. And one of the things that I'm going to ask from everybody on the panel is that by the end of this stream, you need to have an artwork completed of Shrek. Just dedicate some energy to a depiction of Shrek, because Shrek is an icon. He's a queer icon. He's part of our lives. In fact, what we could do to open up this podcast is all go around and share our favorite Shrek moments. So, Tennyson, would you open up with your favorite Shrek moment?
There was a secret chord that David played, and it pleased the Lord. But you don't really care for music, do you?
You know, we're gonna get a copyright strike just for you singing, and I hate it.
It's not the actual track playing though.
But you're so good at it.
You're so good. It sounded just like Lewis or whatever his name is.
John Cale.
The
Cale.
worst version. The worst version.
Ooh.
Wow.
What's the version in the Shrek movie? I know the guy's name.
The John Cale version.
Yeah, it's
the Shrek movie. The
soundtrack says Rufus Wainwright, but it's actually John Cale.
Mm-hmm.
Is Rufus Wainwright the person who wrote the song?
No,
the Leonard Cohen song.
Yeah, Leonard Cohen.
Leonard Cohen. Okay, there's 3 artists involved in this process. Okay.
Yes, and I'm gonna make people angry, but I think Jeff Buckley did the best version.
I found a really good video on YouTube as I was searching for Shrek content of 200 people recreating the movie in various mediums. So it was really good, and they had a very they had a good all-star cover, which I'll have to share with you later. But okay, so that's Tennyson's favorite moment. Gabbles, what's your favorite Shrek moment?
All of Shrek 2, I think. The best Shrek movie. I don't know.
Neat.
Nothing really specific. Just in its entirety, really. Just a
this
story
whole-
about love, family, togetherness, Christmas.
And also
green.
trans.
Oh yeah, trans rights, gay rights.
We're gonna talk about that today. Danimal, what's your favorite Shrek moment?
I liked when Donkey told Shrek that George Bush doesn't care about black people.
Well, that's funny because I like the part where Shrek farted, and then the donkey that was voiced by a black person said a funny thing. I think that was my favorite Shrek moment.
Yeah, or when Donkey was caught with that transsexual prostitute. That was a fun. moment in Shrek too.
Yeah. I heard somebody's
Eddie Murphy?
Discord.
He got caught with the train.
I heard somebody's Discord ding for a second, so let's all just double check. As we watch the video and as we draw our best depiction of Shrek lore, who has actually watched the video? Because I actually watched through it yesterday.
I attempted to, and I couldn't pay attention.
I did not, because I like to go into these things blind rather. Whichever word you want to use.
Gabbles, you going in blind as well? Also mute, apparently.
I knew that. Yes, completely.
Okay,
for once.
Okay. So the Danimal started, and then he ate a weed brownie and couldn't pay attention anymore. Is that essentially what happened?
Not a brownie, it's a gummy. It's flavored like
gummy.
oranges.
Okay. Ooh, orange flavored. I've actually watched through this whole video, so I'm not going to give away too much. What I will say is it wasn't as bad as I expected. I'm going to give this person credit. I like doing really strange interpretations of text. I'm almost on team death of the author, but not quite. I famously argued with my family that Pacific Rim was about how we need to bomb Mexico. So, you know, I mean, it makes sense. They built a wall. The monsters went through the wall. So a wall is not good enough. You need to go to their country and bomb them.
Did you ever see Robot Jocks? Hey, Mr. Big Fan of Reanimator and From Beyond. Did you ever see Robot Jocks, Stuart Gordon's other movie?
Uh-uh.
Oh, it's so
I don't
good.
think I did. No.
Oh, you guys should totally watch that. So it's different nations that fight over territories using mechs.
This isn't anime?
No, it's not.
Real life.
It is.
Oh, shit.
Too bad I heard the Pacific Rim sequel sucked, so that was unfortunate, but all is well and good. I guess what I will say about this video without giving too much away is I guess my biggest complaint is it's surface level. It's sort of just applying the moral, but putting a certain spin on it. I think they get the moral right. And I'm saying they because I genuinely cannot figure out this person's gender. They reveal that they are in fact trans at some point. So guesses on that as we go through. But they're also British, so maybe it doesn't matter because who cares?
It's always hard to tell with the Brits.
Brits are all kind of
I didn't know
androgynous.
I didn't know that
They're a
trans
little
people-
bandy-legged.
I didn't know that there were trans people in the Shire.
Oh. Well, you know what that new Lord of the Rings show
Oh,
on
yeah.
Amazon. They're gonna have non-binary hobbits. Just be ready for it.
Oh no.
They're gonna be black trans queer hobbits running around, and then
Just
It's gonna be just like Game of
Just as Tolkien
Thrones.
imagine, and Slate is gonna post a glowing review of the diversity in the show. It's gonna be great.
It's gonna be like Lord of the Rings, guys.
It's gonna be great, you guys. It's gonna be great.
That's great.
It's going to be great.
That's going to be great.
It's going to be great.
That's going
But let's get into it. Shrek is queer culture. I think this is going to be maybe less funny, but also there's a lot of interesting concepts to pick apart here.
Shout out to the Doge thing on the microphone.
Oh yeah, I like that touch. That's a good touch. So if we're ready, I'm gonna hit start.
Let's go.
Beginning in the late 1980s, queer activists began to reclaim the word as a deliberately provocative and politically radical alternative to the more assimilationist branches of the LGBT community.
The successful branches of the LGBT community, I want to say.
I'm going to be using the word assimilation quite a bit, and here it describes the process by which a minority integrates socially, culturally, and/or politically into a larger, dominant culture and society. This often involves erasing their unique identities and becoming as similar to the mainstream as possible in order to be accepted. I'm not here to prove that Shrek is queer. I'm not here to prove that this movie was written for queer people, because I don't think it was. What I'm here to do is explain why the first two Shrek movies hit so close to home for me as a queer person.
So this is really where, at the point of the video where I thought, okay, this isn't going to be cringingly bad. Because what I was really expecting was this is queer coded. It was written for queer people, yada, yada, yada. So I do like this beginning. How do we feel about assimilation and queer?
Is assimilation a bad thing?
I think it's to an extent an inevitability if you have any sort of cultural group poised against a larger mainstream. Over time, that if there's no force initiated against that cultural group, that cultural group will become assimilated into the mainstream. Just in general over time. It's not just a thing with queerness, if you want to call it that. It's also religions, cultures, philosophies, art movements, and so on. Cubism and Fauvism and Dada used to be, groups that became assimilated into the art world. They used to be thought of as strange, outsider movements, but over time. But now you can go to the Museum of Modern Art and see a painting by Picasso or Matisse or Cézanne and so on. These strange, or an expressionistic painter like Egon Schiele. You can see these in national galleries where there used to just be Renaissance and neoclassical paintings. Now there are things by Jackson Pollock, Andy Warhol, and so on. So it's just a matter of time. And of course, the assumption that there's no active force being initiated to suppress the culture.
Yeah, well, it's going to come up again later, so.
Hopefully give you a different way of looking at these movies. This is not a meme unless you make it into one. The first time we see Shrek, we are immediately put into a situation of othering him, either by laughing at or judging his hygiene habits. What a gross, disgusting ogre. We then jump directly to a group of people planning to attack Shrek, running to his swamp with pitchforks, and this shows us how Shrek is not only othered by us, the viewers, but also by the society in the film. This quick...
I'm not sure I necessarily think this is... I think this is kind of a surface level, just from what we've heard so far. It seems very surface level. Because on the one hand, we see the angry villagers who want to take out Shrek, but on the other hand, we see Shrek in his natural habitat. Shrek being happy. You know?
he loves being an ogre, doesn't he? Isn't that
he
like
likes
his
being
like,
left
thing?
alone. He likes living in the swamp, bathing in mud, brushing his teeth with bug innards, and all that stuff. So it's not as if he's being actively... He doesn't live a terrible life. He doesn't live a... It's not like he's... There are no laws against Shrek being Shrek. Because Shrek is not... See, to be other, I think you would have to already be part of the society in order to be otherized or marginalized by everyone else in that society.
I mean, it would seem to be fair to say he is other. He is another species. He has another standard of living. It's not as if he's human, but he's a little different.
He also seems to live outside of the general society. He outside of the society of men, and just lives sort of as an ogre. It's not like he was part of, the land of... Is there actually a name of the land that they live in?
Yeah, I'm not up on my Shrek lore. Is there any part of like any of the Shrek movies where he's trying to like be part of the society and they're like, shun you, cast you to the swamp? Like I thought he like
in the first movie,
being an ogre, right?
If we're just talking about the first movie, it's just him living alone as an ogre, and he's just happy with it, and so on. Like it's not.
Is there ever a part
Yeah, he
where
tries
he's, like,
to adjust. He tries to adjust to like being a normal person because he meets Fiona's family essentially.
Right.
In the second movie, yeah.
The sequel, and this person will cover the sequel and have their take.
Okay.
And again, I don't think this person has like the worst take. I think though, and we'll see this once they get into the sequel, I think their interpretation runs into some problems when they try to apply it to trans identity.
Do they specifically focus on trans identity or on broader LGBT? Okay.
They start out kind of broadly as a queer interpretation, but they specifically go into the trans thing, and you'll see they lean very heavily into it. And I think there are some problems if you do that. But we'll get there.
Quickly and effectively underlines Shrek's marginalized status. He isn't seen as a person, he is perceived as a monster. The cuts between the townsfolk running to his place with pitchforks and him just doing regular things, chilling out in front of the fireplace, eating dinner, shows us that the image that people have of Shrek is completely twisted. It seems ridiculous to dedicate this much time into harassing an ogre who's just trying to do his own thing. This is framed as something that Shrek is used to. He rolls his eyes, gets up, and goes to confront the villagers who have come to attack him. This has happened many times before. These townspeople have constructed a straw man of Shrek, saying, "It'll grind your bones into bread." Note the use of it. Shrek actually plays into this, saying that he will make a suit out of their skins. He has abandoned all hope of rehabilitating his image, and now he plays into the monster narrative completely by embracing words like creature and monster, even piling them on top of each other, we may dispel their ability to harm us.
So that kind of gets into the whole the reclaiming of queer and whether that's a good thing or whether that's the right strategy. Sort of becoming the monster that, it harkens back to that last video. Do you become the monster they expect you to be?
Oh yeah, that's right. I forgot he ended it with something like that. Well, I mean, it's like, so for the queer word, he brought it up in the beginning there, where it's like it's supposed to be in opposition to anything that is the heteronormativity, quote unquote. I mean, that's true. That's what the politicization of the word queer was. And in the stream with the two kinksters that we talked about at the very beginning, I love hearkening back to that one. I was talking about how in the late 80s, that's when the gay rights movement kind of threw off that attitude of just like, well, we need to be separate, where we are separate people and all that. And we need to be freaky deaky out there, people that are separate from normality in society. And, the adults had to step in and be like, nope. We're going to be functioning members of society. So we're going to do away with that. And the queer thing and the queer theory is kind of a response to that, honestly.
Claiming his monstrosity and embracing it, Shrek has fully embraced his rejected status, much like the anti-assimilationist queer people who reclaimed their rejected status and the word queer. We then learn a little bit more about this society where Shrek lives. Regular poor people selling fantasy creatures like objects. There is obviously a pecking order here, and it seems like the characters who don't have human forms are those who have the lowest place in this hierarchy. Donkey is also one of these creatures. Dehumanized, ostracized, strange, weird, and different. Shrek is also dehumanized, and this is one of the reasons why Donkey immediately trusts him. Recognizing that their shared oppression under this authoritarian state links them. Although Shrek has lived an isolated life away from society, he quickly realizes that he won't be able to ignore this any longer. Suddenly, the reality of this oppressive system is literally on Shrek's doorstep.
I don't remember the movie. Was that played as him having moral indignance about it, or being like, why are all these people in my home? They need to leave.
Yeah, he wanted him off his land.
It was mostly an annoyance because, what are all these people doing on my swamp? Right?
So it's more it's not that he's like moved by their plight exactly. He's actually pretty annoyed. He's
pissed off and he just wants to figure out who did this, and that's sort of what starts the main quest of the movie, because he later, of course, he makes a deal with Farquaad that if he rescues Fiona from the castle, then Farquaad will give him his swamp back without all of fairy tale creatures and so on.
It would have been awesome if they...
Down to the last slime-covered toadstool.
I think it would have been awesome if the movie went down like the Branch Davidian cult. And just Farquaad came in there with his CS gas and set swamp on fire to smoke them all out.
Goodness.
I would watch that movie.
And he has no choice but to take action. Why are they considered freaks? Well, the power that be, Lord Boris Johnson Farquaad.
Some of you may die, but it's a sacrifice I am willing to make.
Says that all of these fairy tale freaks are poisoning his perfect world. And what is this perfect world that Lord Farquaad aspires to? All of these fairy tale creatures would not exist. They wouldn't be in his Marvel movies. Lord Farquaad is obsessed with image above all else. He wants his kingdom to be the most perfect.
Okay, this is where I think there's a better interpretation. Because he's going to go down the line of this is like heteronormativity, pushing out all the queer people in favor of heteronormativity. Look at this image and don't tell me that's McMansions.
Oh,
yeah, totally.
It's like a Levittown, or one of those other cookie-cutter neighborhoods that you would see in a 50s TV show, where everybody's house
yeah.
Huh? Everyone's house is just the same, everyone wears the same clothes, has the same habits and attitudes.
Isn't that supposed to be Disneyland, though? Isn't that what this is parodying?
I think to an extent.
To an extent, because it's very crafted, it's very controlled. But I think when I look at like this image in particular, I think this is more a criticism of modern life, just shoving a very organized, very monotone organization of the way things are away from the fantasy. So you could even see this as a criticism of modernity against the pre-modern, the magic and the mysticism that was acceptable in the old times. And he's trying to push it into the modern era. Like we're going to have houses all in order. We're going to have neighborhoods that are structured. That's more how it comes off as me.
This movie is an allegory of Peter the Great trying to bring the Russian out of feudalism and the serfs into the modern world. That's what this movie's really about.
It could be.
And it ends with the Bolsheviks.
It does have that sort of a forced industrialization feel to it. Like we got to get all these rural weirdos out of here.
Yeah.
And build an organized city. So I think this is where the analysis is not deep enough.
I think you could make a decent argument that a hidden theme in Shrek is the marginalization of agrarian lifestyles by forcibly bringing them into modernity and industrialization against their will.
It's city planning. Look at that. That's city planning right there.
Yeah, it's like Levittown, New York, or other similar suburban areas that were designed sort of top down by people who wanted all the houses to be the same. All the neighborhoods are planned out in the same way. Everybody's the same. Everybody looks the same. Everyone sounds the same. Everybody thinks the same way. It's very it's like the Apple Store.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be continued in the sequel, which they also talk about. So
it's like what Tim Pool always complains about with the big city center voting and hurting the countryside by like taking away their water and stuff.
Yep.
Tim Pool's right.
Beautiful of them all, the magical creatures that were out to Shrek's swamp are simply too deviant, too strange, too abnormal to exist in this perfect society that he wants to build. Lord Farquaad has an idea of beauty that obeys to a norm, a rigid structure, and anything outside of that structure is not considered beautiful or desirable.
I think this idea of beauty versus deviance is probably the stronger analysis that you could make. Not specifically, I think honing in on a queer analysis and using this dynamic between beauty and deviance is a bit too narrow. And I think that the dichotomy here can be applied much more broadly. Between the perfect image of the perfect realm or society versus the deviant or the outre or the unseemly. And I think that a queer analysis of Shrek is a bit too limiting, because the dichotomy is much more broad and can be applied to many other areas or through various other lenses. Like you could do a queer analysis of this as much as you could talk about how Shrek is a metaphor for redlining or other forms of ethnic or racial discrimination. You could apply the same dichotomy even with Farquaad's perfect world where all the houses are the same. You could make a much better argument that it applies to like Levittowns, which were almost exclusively white people in the 50s, compared to, say, ghettos where you had mostly Italians, Irish, Poles, Jews, blacks, and so on. So I think that the dichotomy is just too broad to apply just to queer culture.
Which is why I say I don't think it's a terrible analysis. It's just sort of shallow because it applies it just to one dimension of experience when really it's quite deep. Now, on the other hand, I think you could argue it's a perfectly legitimate thing to do, to take a larger theme and narrow it to your own experience.
Right.
Because it is, every piece of art or literature or film you encounter, you're going to first read it through your own experience. So in that sense, I think it's fine. I think where it goes off the rails is part 2.
Oh yeah, I mean it's like it's almost working with the broad brush strokes of allegories, and you can apply that to
he said
everybody
in the beginning. It's or they. I still don't know this person's pronouns, but this person applies it specifically without saying like it's just about this.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
So it's decent.
Asks the mirror if his kingdom is perfect. However, the mirror reminds him that he doesn't technically have a kingdom yet. In order for his kingdom to exist, he, the perfect king, must first marry the perfect princess. Basically, Lord Farquaad is not yet a Chad, but he could become one if he gets the girl. This objectification of women by Lord Farquaad and his men is further illustrated by the fact that choosing Fiona seems like such a superficial choice. She is replaceable, one of 3 perfect princesses. Who she is doesn't matter to these men, all that matters is her appearance. And if she can finally make Lord Farquaad into the alpha male king that he thinks he deserves to be. Without a princess, he has no real social value, and I
think, to an extent, a problem with film analysis in general is that sometimes the person performing the analysis analyzes something in a serious vein that isn't necessarily intended to be serious or is obviously unserious. Like the choosing the princesses scene. It's obviously a parody of The Dating Game, that old TV show, where you had 3 different candidates, and they would give the host would describe each. I think it was you had a woman and 3 men, or vice versa, and they would describe each candidate. She was like, this bachelor is so and so from so and so. He likes this, that, and the other thing. Meanwhile, this bachelor has, these qualities. These he does this for a living, and he likes this, this, and this. And so on, and it's very obviously meant to be a joke because I'm pretty sure The Dating Game either was on TV or was at least still in the popular consciousness at the time that Shrek came out in 2001. And so I think this is not just a problem with this, but a problem with analysis in general. Is that people are often reading seriously into unserious things as part of trying to make their broader point, and I think that can cause problems or make the person appear themselves to be not getting what the movie is actually about, or perhaps reading too deep into something that isn't there.
Yeah, especially for this film, because it's all a send up, it's all a parody. It's just taking tropes from pop culture and classic Disney kind of tropes, and it's just screwing with them in irreverent ways. And it's like, is it really making a serious, at this level, is it making a serious condemnation of a cultural issue, or is it just playing on tropes?
Yeah, the entire Shrek franchise is effectively a parody of Disney movies. Well, it started out as a parody in the first film, and then, was able to stand on its own as its own thing and spawn its own set of sequels. And I think that's why Shrek is funny and why Shrek is so memorable, because it uses those timeless fairy tale elements, and it turns them on their heads in such a remarkable fashion so that we remember, the main character is not this generic, bland Prince Charming, right? They even make fun of Prince Charming in the second and third movies, when he's actually the antagonist. Is Rupert Everett as this prissy blonde who he was the one who was supposed to get the girl, and he arrives at the castle in Shrek 2 after crossing deserts and frozen wastelands and forests and fighting monsters, and then he gets to the highest room in the tallest tower, and he finds just the cross-dressing wolf reading like a smutty magazine, I think. And then that sort of starts off Shrek 2. But yeah, it's the entire Shrek franchise, and especially the first movie, is just a parody of all these classic, timeless Disney and other more broad fairy tale themes that get turned so remarkably on their heads that they sort of stuck in the consciousness, and that's what makes Shrek such one of the things that makes Shrek such a fantastic film.
Right. Gabbles, Danimal, you have anything to add here?
No,
no.
not
Not
go ahead,
really.
Gabbles.
Well, I mean, it's about like the corporate culture of Disney, because a lot of the animators came from Disney.
Yeah, and they were
That's
poking
true,
fun
too.
directly at
It is
the
definitely-
whitewashed. They were poking fun at the whitewashed, very very sanitized sort of fairy tales that Disney has, in contrast to, say, Grimm's fairy tales, which were very. If you ever read Grimm's fairy
And they're
tales, they were
morbid.
they're very morbid, because most of them are like morality stories. Don't do this, or
You'll
like
get
in the original
killed
version of.
eaten.
Yeah, like in the original version of Cinderella, where the sisters have to chop parts of their feet off to fit into the glass slipper. And that's how they get found out as being imposters before Cinderella puts the actual glass slipper on. Or the original ending of Hansel and Gretel, where they push the witch into her oven and she turns into gingerbread. Or the original ending of Rumpelstiltskin, where the girl tells Rumpelstiltskin his real name, and he's so angry he stamps his foot. This was always funny to me. Rumpelstiltskin, right? The princess finds out Rumpelstiltskin's name, and he's like, "How did you find that? The devil must have told you that." And so he's so angry, he stamps his foot into the floor, and he's with such force that he gets stuck in the floor, and he tries so hard to pull his leg out, he bursts in half, and it's revealed that he was made of gingerbread the entire time. Which is apparently a thing in multiple German fairy tales.
Really
Gingerbread.
obsessed with gingerbread, man.
Gingerbread,
Okay.
yeah.
Gingerbread.
Like, weird. Anyway.
It is indeed weird.
I'll just say, in general, I think that there's value in film analysis if the film calls for it, like with something like a Shining or like a Panos Cosmatos film or something like that. But when you're doing it with something like Shrek, I mean, this is just fan fiction. Come on now. like I know that we're taking the film analysis that he's doing very seriously, and he's doing it very well, but it's like, come on, it's like referencing stuff like The Dating Game, and there's like pop culture references from like the 70s and Shrek and stuff, and like, come on. I just don't buy the whole film analysis. So I'm going to kind of make fun of it. You guys are talking seriously about it.
Yes, I think there is something to make fun of. I think the analysis itself is very concise and very well worded, but I do think it's very surface level, and just because it's so surface level, it misses, like Tennyson said, it misses the parody and the send-ups that are supposed to be coming through. There is a little authorial intent that we have to take into consideration here.
It's like that expression.
It's supposed to make fun of Disney. It's supposed to make fun of these stories.
It's like that old expression, if you have to explain the joke, it's no longer funny.
Yeah. It loses a little of the magic if you just sit there and take it as a deathly serious analysis.
Be back in a second. I have to use the restroom.
Okay.
I'm still working on my Shrek paint masterpiece.
I think mine's the best. It's gonna be real good.
Mine's gonna have an Austin Powers reference, so.
Ooh. I'm looking forward to it.
You never seen Austin Powers? How have you not seen Austin Powers? That movie's so good.
Wait, what?
Because I grew up in a Christian conservative household. That's why.
Yeah, but you're
you
your
watched
own like
Shrek.
And I never, I never really.
Some queer film like Shrek.
I just was never very interested in Austin Powers. I have to say, everything I saw of it was kind of like, eh.
Gabbles, what do you think of Austin Powers?
I like Austin Powers. That's New Line Cinema. They
I'm
made
sure it's
good
funny.
stuff.
Just never, I don't think I watched tons of comedies.
Oh, I only watched comedies for a long
I
time.
think comedies were like my least favorite film genre. I was watching movies with prison rape when I was 13, okay? Like this was I like
Much more
serious
Christian.
drama. I watched serious drama. Oh,
What
and I watched
movie?
Princess Mononoke, where people get their heads lopped off with arrows. That's also very Christian, I gotta say.
I was watching Rodney Dangerfield make jokes about boners.
Nice.
Okay, how buff do I make Shrek? It's it's a hard question.
He's pretty. He's a built boy.
He's got at least some shape to him. So I'm gonna give him some shape. Here we go.
You know what? Maybe I won't do an Austin Powers reference. At first, I was going to do a "So I Married an Axe Murderer" reference, and I'm just like, nobody's going to get that freaking reference. I'm thinking about like Mike Myers movies. Like Wayne's World is too obvious. Austin Powers is super obvious.
Wayne's World.
Maybe what's the movie where he played the like yogi that coaches hockey? Is that what it is?
Oh my goodness!
You guys know what I'm talking about? Did I make up a Mike Myers movie in my head?
If you did, you should send it to him. Is he dead?
No, he's not.
Oh.
No, he's not dead. Is Mike Myers dead?
Okay.
I don't think so.
I mean,
don't know
after
how old he is, so
well, after Dr. Loomis shot him in the first Halloween, I think Mike Myers came back in the second one, right? Because it's also the name of the slasher from the famous movie. Yep. Yeah. Okay. See, jokes are even funnier when you got to explain them. I don't know what the fuck Tenny's talking about. That guy's an idiot.
It's super funny when you have to explain it.
Yeah, that's the best joke.
Someday I'm gonna explain the Christian slasher that my mom came up with. She came up with this script. She's like, one day she was sitting at a dinner table. She's like, I have a script for a Christian slasher. I think it'd be really good. And she described it to me, and it was we sat and we workshopped it for a while, and we just died laughing. It's perfect. So someday I'm gonna get that film funded.
Did you ever see the short film of the priest that when he ejaculates fire? So he has to so that's like why he became a priest, so he can be celibate, but he still has needs to take care of, and he's like accidentally sets rooms on fire.
I've seen the trailer.
Prostitutes.
I've seen the trailer of the one where the guy turns into a dinosaur.
That is a great one.
I've seen the trailer for that.
And I will watch that movie. I want to watch The Cat Talks, or whatever that movie was.
Oh, yeah. A talking cat.
Yeah, a talking cat. That's it. And it's clearly shot.
And it's clearly shot with porn lighting, because this dude has only ever made porn.
With porn lighting and clearly like porno actors.
Look, guys, we're going to make a kids movie. It's going to be great.
Yeah.
It's going to be great.
Nothing wrong with that.
We'll just have some talking animals, and there you go.
Hey, the kids are all watching RuPaul anyway.
Exactly.
Hey, Gabbles, when you have kids, are you going to show them RuPaul right away, or are you going to wait till they're 2?
2 hours, you mean? Right?
Oh yeah, 2 hours. Yeah, I meant 2 hours old.
Yeah, sure.
Kids love it. They eat it up.
Yeah, toddlers just go crazy for it, don't they?
Yeah.
Just love hearing about dresses.
They do love dresses. I will say that.
They love watching a 36-year-old skinny man that's cranked out because he can't do smack on set due to the contract, shaking his ass around. It's the most entertaining thing for a child.
I mean, that sounds like something I'd be entertained by.
Gambles, I just saw the picture you put in chat. Oh my god. Oh my god!
Gotta pull it up. Yep.
Oh, that's
Reality.
so relevant.
Indeed.
Is it? I just found a picture of Donkey as a horse from the second movie, I think.
There was I once watched a video essay on YouTube where the guy was complaining about cops being in kids' movies, and it was the funniest little liberal brain take. He's like, "What, police brutality is funny?" And I'm like, "What are you talking about? It's super funny." Yes.
Yes.
It's like, why do all these kids' movies have police in them? I'm like, do you not understand children? They love it. They love authority. They love playing cops and robbers and watching movies with police arresting people. They love it.
Kids love things with very clear bad guys and very clear good guys.
Yeah, like unambiguous morals.
Mhm.
They're super into it. And he's like, oh, it's just cop propaganda. They're just trying to, like, communism has rotted these people's brains. That's all I gotta say.
A much lower place in the rigid social hierarchy. Even attempts to warn Lord Farquaad about what happens to Fiona at night, but he doesn't care. The girl isn't important, it's the social status that the girl gives him that matters. In this sense, Lord Farquaad represents a certain kind of masculinity, focused on a rigid social hierarchy and upholding archaic gender norms, even if he himself doesn't really fit neatly into them. Lord Farquaad
Isn't the joke that he isn't masculine and he's overcompensating? Like, isn't that the joke of his character?
Yeah.
That does seem to
Literally
be
the joke of the movie, yeah.
The joke is that he's
short. He's kind of effeminate. He's kind of just has that.
Yeah,
They
like, the
even
joke
say
is he's
that-
not masculine.
They even say that in the when they first get to Lord Farquaad's castle, Shrek says, "Do you think maybe he's compensating for something?" And Donkey doesn't know what Shrek's talking about.
Yeah,
I
because
think you should.
Donkey's
I think you
fucking
should
hung.
say that
We all know
line
it.
in, because he's black.
Oh my god!
That and donkeys. Have you ever seen a donkey with its? I mean, I have. I've worked with donkeys. It's
Hard
Well,
work.
pretty impressive.
I'll say, in doing research for our Saturday video, oh.
Oh, no.
Say no more. Say no more.
Say no more. I was gonna say, yeah, because Shrek is more traditionally masculine than this dude. He's more buff. He's more physically capable. He's more aggressive. It seems like he's the masculine one, and the send up is like the monster is the more masculine one versus the supposed prince.
The more masculine and more heroic, because
And more
Farquaad,
heroic.
because
Yeah.
Farquaad is a little bitch who hides behind his guards.
He's a coward. He sends other people to do the fighting for him.
Exactly.
He's not masculine at all.
He isn't good. He's not
the
going to
joke.
save the princess. That's why he has the knights all do the thing. That's why he says the line, "Some of you may die, but that is a sacrifice I am willing to make."
No, I think that was Boris Johnson that said that, according to the video.
Okay.
Yeah. It does seem like it's not a condemnation of masculinity at all. It's a mockery of someone who doesn't fit the masculine standard.
Yeah, or a portrait of masculinity in any way, condemnation or portrait of masculinity, like he's saying it is. But anyway, I'm picking him apart.
doesn't accept his short height. He actively tries to hide it and deny it. He might be an incel. Yeah, that's possible. Lord
I gotta eject the incel.
I just find that hilarious. I just find that idea hilarious. Like Farquaad, the incel.
I'm sorry, is Shrek not also an incel at this point?
No, Shrek can get it, man. I have faith in
It
Shrek.
has at this point in the story, I think you can.
No, he's a MGTOW. He's not an incel. He's saying I don't need it,
He's in
but he can get it if he wants to.
he's an Oaktow, an ogre going his own way.
It's true. It's true. But yeah, it does seem weird to criticize the prince for being an incel, and here's Shrek also being a part and not really dating anybody either. Seems misdirected.
Maybe he's gay. Maybe this guy's right.
Maybe Shrek is gay. We're all wrong.
Farquaad's ideal of masculinity is normative. I think this is best expressed by the idea of hegemonic masculinity. Men run the risk of subordination when they don't practice gender consistent with the dominant ideology. In order to avoid this subordination, Lord Farquaad aspires to an idealized masculinity constructed in relation to women and closely connected to the institution of marriage. As a queer person, I don't think I'm alone in saying that this idea of hegemonic masculinity is extremely obvious when you yourself don't fit into it. I think that this makes Lord Farquaad a pretty interesting character, especially in the context of a movie about deviating from the norm. Instead of running from the norm, Lord Farquaad aspires to it, and this is what contrasts him to Shrek.
Alright. So, yes, but again, this is where the analysis kind of becomes, I'm going to drop these big words to make it seem like I'm saying something really deep. But it's really not that complicated.
Yeah, he's using my strategy, the jerk.
Masculine hegemony. It's like, no, he's just a little short, overcompensating twerp who can't get a lady, so he's gonna grab some lady and make her marry him.
Maybe he read
Pretty much.
Jordan Peterson.
Maybe Shrek read Jordan Peterson.
No, yeah.
Oh.
I think it's worth noting the differences between Lord Farquaad and Shrek. Although Lord Farquaad is more socially accepted in theory, it seems to be superficial. The public must be told how to react to his speeches. He's extremely sensitive about his height and his appearance. Shrek, on the other hand, although he's pretty much universally considered as extremely unattractive, seems far more at home and comfortable with his own identity than Lord Farquaad is. Shrek is humble, but he's a lot more confident. I mean, he's the one who goes to get Fiona. I would also argue that Shrek is a lot more free than Lord Farquaad is, even though he is rejected by society at large. Of course, this depends on your definition of freedom. But for Shrek, freedom isn't assimilation. Shrek's idea of freedom is his little pocket of peace where he can just be himself. Shrek is sent on the quest to find Fiona with Donkey. And Donkey asks him, why?
Shrek's the libertarian ideal.
Yeah.
Basically.
Tradcon has his own piece of land, works the land.
He does follow the natural law.
The natural law.
The natural law.
Where the man is the warrior, or the thinker.
That's what Shrek, yeah, Shrek's he's the warrior. He's not a contemplator.
He's the warrior.
For sure.
He is for sure heteronormative, I gotta say. He gets the girl in the end. That's really stinking heteronormative.
Mm.
Why didn't you pull the ogre stuff on Lord Farquaad? Why didn't you grind up his bones and make them into bread? Shrek responds to this just as he did to the attackers at the start of the movie. He exaggerates. He asks Donkey if he should have decapitated them and put their heads on sticks. He uses hyperbole in order to illustrate to Donkey that this is a mischaracterization and a
Hyperbole.
He points it out. Lots of people make that mistake.
complete straw man. Nothing that he's done so far in the movie proves to us that he really does any of these awful things. We then go into the classic onion dialogue. Ogres are like onions. They have layers, and there's more to them than people think. The layers underneath the surface are almost never taken into consideration. It's only the superficial image of ogres that matters. This idea of a monster that makes bread out of people's bones. Obviously, as a transgender person, I can relate to quite a lot of this. At the start of this movie, Shrek seems pretty content with his solo life in the swamp. But about halfway through, we learn that he hasn't really ever been okay with this. He's kept everyone out of his life, and it's been a way to protect himself against this judgment of both his identity and his body.
They judge me before they even know me.
His seemingly laid-back attitude at the start of the movie seems to be more of a defense mechanism than anything else. And as many people know, when you go through so many attacks on your identity, you have to create defense mechanisms just in order to cope. Shrek.
So again, I think, what do I think? I think this is not a bad argument at all.
I think it's
It's going to get a little messy with the trans stuff, though, and it's going to happen fairly quick here. But
saying I can relate to this is not exclusive to how a trans person sees it. I think it's not. You could apply that to many more groups. I don't think it's necessarily concrete or exclusive to LGBT people.
it is a universal experience, and I think you can tie it into life in a number of ways.
Exactly. Because hypothetically, if you want to make an analysis through a specific lens, it's best that it's probably best if you focus in through that analysis and demonstrate how specifically the thing you're analyzing relates to the lens that you're using it to analyze it, right? Like if you're going to make a queer analysis of Shrek, you have to point out how Shrek is queer specifically, as opposed to an allegory for race or discrimination or sex or industrialization or whatever. Like you have to, if you're going to make an analysis through a specific lens, you should make that analysis as specific as possible. How is Shrek a queer allegory and why specifically, as opposed to an allegory for all these other things?
I'm busy doing my Shrek art, sorry.
Totally fine. We'll just keep listening.
Better off alone, because at least that way he won't get hurt. While the bad guy, Lord Farquaad, is sitting in bed, seemingly masturbating, touching himself in front of a mirror, which I find important symbolically. This scene further underlines that it's not Fiona that he wants. Fiona will just help him see the man that he wants to see in the mirror.
It also highlights how unmasculine he is. Look at those zebra stripe sheets. And he's sipping on a martini, and he's kind of like ooh-ahing in the mirror. It's very
narcissistic.
Shit, girl.
It's sissy coded. Like
yeah, that's queer coding. Snap, snap.
That's queer coding. He's the gay one.
It comes off as very narcissistic as well, like blatantly.
Right. So again, I think this is a non-masculine character with pretensions of becoming masculine. And that's the joke. The joke is he's not masculine. He's short, and he's kind of effeminate and pretentious.
Though this movie is on a surface level a love story, it is more about identity, oppression, and a very strict idea of beauty. And although love is central to this movie, I would argue that recognition is even more important. When Fiona looks at Shrek and starts falling in love with him, she starts to come to terms that she could be capable of being loved, because she recognizes her ogre self in him. Because she looks like him. As a transgender person who primarily dates trans people, for this very reason, I absolutely relate to this.
I was just laughing at her ogre self.
She recognizes the ogre mensch.
Do all women have an ogre inside of them?
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Yeah, obviously.
Clearly.
If you can't handle me at my best, you don't deserve me at my ogre.
Sorry,
I think I got that backwards.
Is Fiona a tomboy allegory?
Oh.
She is tomboyish.
Shrek is an allegory for finding the tomboy within all of us.
Hey, Gabbles, would you lick Fiona's abs?
Yeah, probably.
All right.
As an ogre or as not an ogre? Or both?
Preferably as a human, probably, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, gross, you kinky.
Phobic. Ogre phobic.
Shit. It's all ogre now.
It's never ogre.
Only through loving someone else who looked like me that I was able to realize that my body and my identity were also worthy of love. This is further underlined by a misunderstanding that leads to a fallout. Both Fiona and Shrek think that the other one doesn't want to be with them because of who they are and what they look like.
I thought you'd understand.
Oh, I understand. Like you said, who could love a hideous, ugly beast?
It's not so much about the love that they share, but them coming to terms with the fact that they are lovable, no matter what they look like or who they are. Shrek and Fiona are similar in this way. They are both looking for acceptance, and they are both so cynical about the idea that they could possibly be worthy of love as ogres that this misunderstanding happens. They are so traumatized about how they have been treated by society that both of them assume that the other one doesn't want to be with them. This misunderstanding pushes Shrek to go back to his solo life in the swamp, once again rejecting the society that rejects him, and Fiona goes back to her original mission, assimilating into society by finally passing as human. Both abandon the social connection that they've made in order to pursue their idea of normal, because they just don't think that they can be loved. Shrek's idea of normal is living alone, because who could possibly want an ogre? Fiona's idea of normal is assimilation.
I just say that that's one of my least favorite storytelling conventions or conceits is miscommunications.
Miscommunication, or it's like, just say a little more.
Yeah.
Just be like, what do you mean? What do you mean by that? And then, like, well, I heard you say this. Like, oh, no.
Yeah, it's so commonplace, and it gets. And it's just every time I see it, it's pretty much always the same pattern. Person A either says something, or is overheard saying something or writing something, and person B misinterprets it in the worst way possible. And both person A and person B are confused and also angry at each other because they both misunderstand the other person. And so that miscommunication gets worse and then gets resolved and then happy ever after.
I don't understand what the original misunderstanding where Shrek overhears her talking about herself and thinks she's talking about him. And then her misunderstanding of thinking that he knows, she thinks that he knows she turns into an ogre at night and that he's disgusted. What sense does that?
Well, I think the reason Shrek gets so bent out of shape over it is because he was going to try to confess that he's in love with Fiona. That's why he brought the sunflower.
Right.
And then
no, but her perception is what I don't get.
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense.
She hears him get mad and say, "Oh, who could love a disgusting thing like that?" It'd be like, "Bro, you're an ogre too. What are you talking about?"
I mean, she was going to explain, but then Farquaad shows up, I think, in the movie.
No.
Right, and then Shrek is just like, "Yeah, here's the girl. Now, fuck off." Basically,
so they just get cut off.
Yeah,
fair enough. I haven't seen this movie in years.
I watched it like 3 months ago.
I'm sorry, did you say 3 minutes ago?
Months.
It should be 3 minutes ago.
It plays on a film projector in my brain.
It's just part of your morning routine. You wake up at 4:30 a.m., pop on Shrek, then you go out for your jog.
Yeah, and you crank one out. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Oniony.
You be quiet for the rest of this.
I could try. I mean, I could try.
Want an ogre? Of course, it turns out that ogres love ogres because ogres understand ogres. The scene where Donkey finds out that Fiona becomes an ogre at night just screams this is a coming out moment to me. I mean,
I've been this way as long as I can remember.
She's still actively resisting the idea that this could be who she is, though, struggling with the reality of her situation. She sees this as a curse, an illness, and doesn't yet see it as simply part of her identity and who she is.
Every night I become this horrible, ugly beast.
She thinks that by pursuing society's idea of a normal relationship, she will finally be free of this internal conflict that she's going through. Fiona's freedom from this curse is not achieved by hiding her ogre self. Freedom only comes through embracing the part of herself that her parents have always tried to hide, and that society has always rejected.
It's disgusting!
And this is... owned.
Get
Hold on,
owned, fascist queer.
Hold on.
Let's watch that again.
It.
Guards!
Get owned, fascist queerphobe.
Come on. Is he still mad at Boris Johnson? Is that why he put that in?
Who knows?
Is
So this is the part where it becomes apparent the person's trying to draw a connection with. I can see the gay allegory, kind of. Except that they're not gay, they're straight. But
the only reason you see it is because you think gay people are like ogres. You homophobe.
But
Shit.
Get owned, you
Here's where
fascist homophobe.
fascist. I don't understand the trans thing though.
No.
Because it is something it's a part of her body that she dislikes, but then in the end she owns up to it. That isn't quite trace for me.
Yeah, it doesn't. It seems tenuous at very best, and honestly seems more lost on me. I'm not sure how like gender dysphoria really relates to it. Like it makes more sense if you were gay and pretending to be straight, or even if you were like someone who enjoyed like a transvestite, someone who enjoys wearing clothes of the opposite sex as like a hobby,
Gabbles, you listening?
Gross. Ew. Why would anyone do that?
I don't know.
What
Probably
the
probably their brains are broken.
Ew. Yeah,
It's because they're trying to be like Shrek.
Oh.
Trying to be Shrek. I
We
learned it
solved
from
it.
Shrek, Dad.
I learned it from watching Shrek, Dad.
You're not wearing that. You're not watching that queer-coded Shrek anymore. No, son of mine.
I don't have an ogre son. Get out of my swamp. This is not a phase. It's who I really am.
My swamp and me, the Gabble story.
And then this next part is even weirder because it's being in a queer relationship, like a
Tag. This is
a
like
male
those.
and a female, just a normal male ogre and a normal female ogre.
Like
There's
this-
nothing.
this-
There's no gender anything here. It's species. It's species.
This is it's like that. Remember that whole "just girly things" hashtag that was a thing like 6 years ago?
Uh-huh.
This is what that looks like.
Just
But- Yeah. And it still looks dumb, by the way.
you know what? You know what the real queer relationship would have been
What?
if Farquaad or whatever his name is married her as an ogre. That's pretty queer. Marrying
Look,
outside your species.
Did you
Give me
guys know that-
5 minutes
Or
on
Farquaad
Peniel, and I can
marrying-
find you a picture of that.
Or Farquaad marrying Shrek. That's the better option.
Ooh.
Did you guys know that Farquaad's name was the closest that DreamWorks could get to using the word fuckwad in a kids movie?
Oh my god.
That's
That was-
true. There's no way that's true. Is that true?
Yeah.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Citation. Bring your citations to the tables.
Yeah, I heard it on the internet. Good enough for me.
I mean, it's funny. So
Here, let me go
that
to
alone settles it
No.
for me.
Yeah, come on. There's truths and there's metaphorical truths. We don't need to look this up. I'm happy with it being a truth in my life right now. I don't want to know
Apparently-
if it's false.
Apparently, Alan Rickman was offered the role of Lord Farquaad, but he turned it down to play Severus Snape in Harry Potter.
Mistake. Huge
Oh.
mistake.
Can you imagine, like Lord Farquaad, but with Alan Rickman's voice?
Wow, that would have been amazing. They could have done the Die Hard scene.
I can super
the
imagine.
end.
He even looks kind of like Snape, just a little bit.
Yeah, he does.
And imagine John Lithgow as Severus Snape.
Oh, that would have been even better.
It's like,
But as his character from Third Rock from the Sun, that's what I would want to see.
yes, yes.
return home from their honeymoon in order to discover that they have been invited to a royal ball by Fiona's parents. And they don't know yet that she's with Shrek, and that she's now an ogre, and that Shrek's an ogre. She has fully embraced her deviant body and is in a relationship with someone else who has one too. Fiona still...
Okay, this is the one line that really bothered me. Deviant body?
Ooh.
I mean, were you born with an extra set of, like...
I don't... Neither of them have...
Like, what is a deviant...
bodies?
What is a deviant body? Like...
I don't know. I think that's a story I read on... I think that's a story I read on Literotica once. I think it was called that.
Because
Penny,
Shrek,
you definitely know that
Shrek,
website.
It's maybe deviant in the sense that other people don't look like him, but he's a different species. Of course, he doesn't look like humans.
He's like English.
Body. He has a very natural ogre body.
Yeah, he's like an ogre, so he's gonna... It's not like he's an ogre who doesn't look ogreish, right?
He's perfectly cisgender all the way through. I'm sorry.
Wait, and ogre is another species?
Yeah, wouldn't it be?
So Fiona turns into an ogre. So this isn't a movie about queers. This is a movie about otherkin.
Oh,
She
That's
becomes
right.
an ogre. How many
Yeah.
ogrekin are there? Do you think?
There's got to be quite. I'm going to Google that. Ogrekin.
Ogrekin. Yeah.
Ogrekin.
I mean, just go to the TLC channel.
They're gonna be super sexy looking though. You just know it.
Oh.
They're not gonna look like.
If you want ogrekin, just check out my 600-pound life.
Hey.
the documentary series this year.
Well, either that or
Ogrekin
the-
is the name of some D&D nerdy thing. Damn, I'm not going to find any porn of that.
Ooh. Unless it's D&D
You could
porn.
find...
Oh yeah, well, hey, yeah.
You could
Silver
find...
linings.
Like, words cannot describe how much gay-themed orc erotica exists.
Throw up some pictures, Kava.
Okay.
I will not show you. I don't want
Look,
this to be do not post this, but I will send a link to a thread on 4chan.
Okay.
Okay. It's gonna
Well, I'll throw up some censored versions for
post
Karen
that
or
in the
Susan
chat.
or whoever.
Oh, God.
Orktober, boys.
Hey, I thought you said your plan is to never get monetized. This is just making sure that plan goes off without a hitch.
Oh yeah, true.
Oh, wow, this art's pretty good, actually.
Follow me for ogre porn.
Holy hell, that's the size of my arm. What are you guys looking at?
The condom only goes halfway.
I'll look at it later.
Double C thick.
Oh wow!
All of them thick boys.
Thick is good.
Yeah, some of this art's really good. I have to check these artists out later.
Oh God! I don't. This is a joke. I'm not looking at this because I like it, just for the audience, just so they know.
Wait, oh, you guys are.
We absolutely love it. What are you talking about? This is all our fetish.
Oh God! Let's keep going.
She's optimistic about that. She recognizes that her parents might be illiterate, but, they're her parents. Surely love conquers all, right? Love isn't conditional. Shrek isn't so sure.
You could at least give them a chance.
Oh, to do what? Sharpen their pitchforks?
The difference between Shrek's apprehension and Fiona's optimism makes a lot of sense when you look at their respective pasts. Shrek has always been perceived as an ogre, whereas Fiona has only just embraced her identity as one. The struggle and tension between two conflicting ideas of how a partner's family could react to your relationship and your identity is something that I think a lot of queer people could probably relate to for some reason. We want to believe that our family will accept us, simply because love shouldn't be conditional.
Do the fat acceptance people like Shrek? Because, man, that is a good role model for them. I'm just saying.
Yeah, he's happy.
I mean, probably not as it relates to being fat, but probably like it is because as a movie. If I had to guess. if I had to guess.
Because Fiona's a thick girl, she's not traditionally attractive, but
She's not bad looking, but she is thick.
Mm.
He's a little more on the hefty side.
Now, I may be exclusively homosexual and a gold star gay, but if Fiona Shrek version was in my room right now, ooh.
Oh my. I'm going to draw that right now.
Throw it up on screen. Throw it up on screen, Cobb.
Mario with Fiona.
I'm going to commission
God.
David Aragon right now. I'm going to send him a picture of me naked, though, to use as reference.
Have you guys considered? Have you guys considered Jesus?
Yeah, he'd probably be good in that commission picture, too.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
Good call. Good call,
Jesus,
Penny.
is that a friend of Aragon's?
Jesus.
In Mexico?
Yeah, I mean, he's Mexican, right? Jesus, I'm sure.
Gonna be right back.
You got to go pray the rosary.
Oh.
No, I was gonna, find a new application for this belt, but never mind. Let's continue, shall we?
Oh.
Bottom text: Gamers rise up.
We live in a society.
We live in
Bottom
a society.
Text:
Where
Gamers rise up.
Where sometimes in-laws don't like who you bring home. Just queer things.
Guess who's coming to dinner?
Just
Shrek.
queer things.
I would love a Guess Who's Coming to Dinner parody, but with Shrek. That would be awesome.
But they tell the... I'd seen the new one.
They call him the N-word.
I saw the new one before I watched the original. The Who's Coming to Dinner.
Oh, the original Sidney Poitier version? That one's amazing.
Yeah, I saw that one second. I saw the...
The Ashton Kutcher one first?
Yes, I did.
Oh, inferior. Sidney Poitier, man.
But I remember all I remember is the joke he told at the dinner table.
Yeah. That's the best scene in the movie.
It's by far the best.
Sidney Poitier.
I still will tell that joke to people. And
if none of you have ever seen In the Heat of the Night, where he plays a cop in the South in the 60s, that movie is fucking amazing. Highly recommend it.
He's amazing in general.
Yeah, I love that, man. Anyway, keep going.
Shrek points out that society might not be so ready to accept us. Family members are not immune to being influenced by society's bias. The distance that they have to travel to far, far away is played for comic relief, but this isn't just physical. This is also symbolic. Shrek and Fiona exist so far outside of what's considered normal that they have to travel for days just to get there. Far, Far Away has nothing to do with Shrek and Fiona's swamp. It is full of references to capitalism, appearance, success, beauty, and celebrity culture. Far, Far Away's aesthetic is modelled on Hollywood, and just like Hollywood in our world, through representation, it dictates the norms. It dictates the ideal of beauty.
I will say, I forgot Joan Rivers was in this movie. That's pretty gay. That's pretty gay.
Oh, darling.
Oh, here they come.
Gabbles, give us your best Joan Rivers impression.
I just did. It's just, a series of times.
Oh, darling. Wait, no, that's not it.
I think this part of the video where it gets into the Shrek 2, and now we're at Far, Far Away, which is clearly a Hollywood takeoff, a Hollywood parody. And again, he's going to do this thing where he says it's about heteronormative norms, and it's about gay, straight people setting their own standards. I'm like, this is really more about Hollywood being Hollywood and being all about appearances. And just the aesthetic is the only thing that matters, being hot, and they're decidedly not by those standards. So it seems another misdirected cultural critique. This is about Hollywood. This is about how shallow Hollywood is. And Hollywood is not exactly a bastion of heterosexual norms.
How dare you?
Well, it ain't the Bible Belt. Let's just say that.
Where's Tenny? Did he ever make it back?
Right here.
Oh, he's here.
There he is.
Okay.
Hey.
I've been here the entire time.
Oh.
He's been here. And Gabbles is here too, right?
No, he's gone.
No. Gabbles left. Oh,
Hmm.
good. I didn't like him much anyway.
Hey,
yeah.
I finished my I finished my Shrek picture. Are we waiting till the end to post those?
Yeah. I'm gonna save mine right now.
All right. We'll wait to the end.
Trick. I think you're all gonna hate it, but
Oh, I'm proud of mine.
I'm proud of it, but you're also gonna hate it.
I just saw the 4chan thing. Oh my god.
And ogres are completely removed from it. More representation, please. And now we have that scene where Shrek and Fiona meet her parents, and oh my god, is it tense. I'd like to underline that Lillian is almost immediately accepting and optimistic about Shrek and Fiona. Although awkward and hesitant, she still treats them with respect, and she even brings up the idea of children at dinner. I feel like Lillian's character is pretty easy to overlook when watching Shrek 2. She isn't really a source of tension like Harold is. Harold knows how society treats outcasts.
I'd say that like John Cleese in Shrek 2 is hilarious. Well, John Cleese he's one of the highlights of Shrek 2 because John Cleese is one of those actors that can be funny in almost anything.
Agreed.
Yeah.
I like John Cleese. He's a good man. Did you watch that fake mockumentary that he did like a few years ago where it's like him like reminiscing about Monty Python, but the joke of the documentary is that he's some like crotchety, super racist, homophobic, misogynistic old man that's just like sitting by his pool and like throwing glasses at the help and stuff, and he's like a jerk. It's so
That
good.
sounds amazing.
Oh yeah,
It's hilarious, honestly.
if you can find it, it's amazing. Yeah, it's only like from a few years ago.
As we learn later that he is a secret outcast himself, and he has been effectively passing as human ever since the fairy godmother transformed him into one. He sees his own difficult past and present in Shrek and Fiona, and he also seems to be dealing with some serious internalized fairy tale phobia. Harold has assimilated into society, and the fact that Fiona has taken a path where she will not be able to do that absolutely horrifies him. Although Harold is technically a magical creature, just like Shrek and Fiona are, he actively denies it, he hides it, he's ashamed of it, and he therefore shames and attacks other people who do not hide their deviant bodies. This
Are ogres magical creatures? In the strict sense, anyway? I mean, they're fantasy creatures, but they're not really, like, we don't really see Shrek or other ogres wielding magic. Because if you're saying a magical creature, that would imply that, like, the fairy godmother is a magical creature because she is a fairy who grants wishes with the wave of a magic wand. So, would ogres be magical creatures or just fantastical creatures?
Entirely. I think for the purpose of the story, it makes sense to phrase it that way because they are they're outside of the typical human society.
Well, I will say I am finding some ogre mages in your 4chan thread you posted here, and
That's true. Yeah.
they have mastered the art of making love potions, apparently.
Ogres can do magic if they want.
This reminds me of gay and trans people who reject passing trans people or flamboyantly gay people. People who are explicitly transgender or explicitly gay are seen as a threat to people who have assimilated. I made all this effort in order to assimilate. Why aren't you?
They've set up this 2 dimensions of assimilation versus, I don't know, what would be the opposite?
Non-conformity?
Non-conformity.
Segregation, wouldn't it?
Yeah, segregation or non-conformity. I wonder, especially with gay culture, how much of gay culture is really culture, and as much as it was a survival something that they were forced to do because they couldn't be in typical society.
I'll say I've received that criticism before from other gay people I've fought with online, that I'm just afraid of their gayness and ashamed of my gayness, and that's why I don't think that we should be wearing neoprene dog masks in the middle of the street, apparently. But So I've received that criticism before.
Is that essential to being gay? Is this is it that expressing these things is an expression of something inherent, or is this a cultural custom that was learned in the past and is continued just out of tradition? Because I'm not sure. I'm not sure if that's
I'm picking the second option. I think it's the second option. What do you think, Abels?
I don't know.
So
I'm actually thinking about it myself now.
It's tricky because I think if you consider straight people and say, okay, are they living their true self completely? Are they inhibiting their own desires and sort of putting on a mask and faking it? There's plenty of aspects that even straight people suppress, and that's part of being in a society. Society is built on some level of repression, of sublimating certain desires to cooperate with other people. So is it that straight people are just doing what they do normally and then gay people are being forced to acclimate to those norms? Or is that the wrong way to frame it?
Hey, Tenny, did you hear that noise? I think it was Sigmund Freud punching through his grave after he heard Kavah say society is repression.
Oh yeah, I heard it, and I agree. Society is effectively built on repression. Freud, I think, was more right than he had any right to be. Was more correct than he had any right to be. Because society is built on the repression of a lot of our instinctual desires. Like, you can't kill whoever you want. You can't eat as much as you like. You can't sleep with whoever you want. You can't say whatever you want to people who annoy you or irritate you. And you have to sublimate those desires and transform them into art or religion or literature or a whole host of other psychological and spiritual pursuits. You know, you can read or see or hear the passion in a person's life through the music they compose, the paintings they paint, the sculptures they craft, the stories they write, and so on. And that's part of the beauty of this kind of necessary repression, I think. Because in a sense, it is necessary. Otherwise, societies would not function in the way that they do.
I guess what I would disagree with this person's framing is the idea that straight people just don't repress anything, while gay people have to repress their gayness in order to fit into society. And I think that's a warped perception of how the world works. I don't think there's nothing innate in being gay that necessitates you wear leather gimp outfits. Like, that's just a cultural holdover of certain subcultures.
I thought they found the leather gene,
And I don't think there's anything inherently straight about getting married and settling down. That's a custom societies had to come up with to deal with sexuality. That's not heteronormativity is not some structure that the heteros came up with to oppress the gays.
I think saying that, say that heterosexual people don't repress anything is just simply untrue. It's demonstrably untrue. How many, heterosexual men have to repress their desire to, their feelings of eroticism towards women who are not their wives, right? You obviously can't just go up to a woman that you find attractive and kiss her. You can't do anything because, again, that would cause a lot of problems if everyone did that. So people have to repress those sort of feelings. Of course, you can't slap everyone who annoys you across the face, right? So you have to repress your feelings of anger, your desire to be violent, and so on. And you, hopefully, if you're so inclined, you'll sublimate that into art, into all those other things that I mentioned earlier. But saying that certain groups of people don't repress anything and other groups of people have to repress everything is simply not the case. It's just untrue.
Or the standard is just somehow the standard, and if you don't fit the standard, it's because the standard's unfair. It's like, well, everybody kind of had to come to this compromise in the first place. The standard was not handed. I think phrasing it like it's a totalitarian rule that's come down from somewhere is probably incorrect. It seems more to be an element of cooperation that we came up with.
Lillian points out her husband's hypocrisy multiple times throughout the movie, and this makes sense because it's heavily implied that Lillian already knew that Harold was a frog. Although Lillian is a human, she fell in love with a frog, warts and all. Harold's inability to love himself for who he really is reflected in his rejection of Shrek and Fiona. Fiona is understandably devastated that her husband and her father just can't get on. After an intense dinner table argument, she goes to cry in her room, which... relatable? Fiona's tears summon the fairy godmother, or as I like to call her, the fairy turf mother.
Some gender-confused wolf.
The fairy godmother is obsessed with appearance and a specific ideal of happiness and beauty.
Sometimes I wonder if middle-aged British women just become turfs or go completely insane once they turn like 60.
Like a
I
butterfly
wonder
emerging from its cocoon.
That's
They just
right.
become turfs.
I wonder if people who use the word turf ever know what it means.
Nah, probably not.
Because they'll throw it around on people. I'm like, they're not radical feminists at all. What do you They'll throw it at tradcons who are absolutely not radical feminists.
Yeah, no, they're not. They're about as far from rad fem as you could get, I think.
They're like extremely traditional gender role people.
Unless you think Roger Scruton is a radical feminist, which good luck explaining that one. It's like also, Jennifer Saunders' cover of Holding Out for a Hero is the superior version.
Oh, over Bonnie Tyler? Screw you, man.
What
Bonnie
the
Tyler.
fuck?
Fight.
Hey, no.
Eat pounds of dick.
Yeah, just kilos.
Kilograms, even. Let's be accurate.
He's gonna get in trouble for saying that.
Gotta use European measurements here.
She doesn't immediately reject Shrek and Fiona though, hides her disdain under promises that she really cares, when all she really cares about is enforcing her idea of what is beautiful onto other people. She's a much more nuanced and implicit villain than Lord Farquaad was, because of this coating of glitter and sugar that all of her actions seemingly have. She immediately puts herself in the position of a carer who's here to help. She also has the power to change people's bodies at will, making them either normal or deviant in the eyes of society.
Wouldn't that be sort of a boon if we're going with the transgender allegory here? Because you would want a fairy godmother who could hypothetically make you into the person you want to be on the outside. Wouldn't that be? Yeah. Isn't that the whole point of a fairy godmother? Is that they can do things, or they can help a person who is in trouble and can't, who is oppressed. Like, look at Cinderella. Like, in the original, you know, that's kind of what a fairy godparent is supposed to do. Like, Cinderella, you know, her stepmother and her sisters hate her and treat her like a drudge, doing all the hard labor around the house. And then, you know, the fairy godmother shows up and gives her, you know, a fancy dress and a carriage to the ball and all that stuff. Like, that's sort of
where I think you are correct, and this is what I thought immediately when this section of the video started, is if we're going with trans allegory, this is the transition surgeon saying, oh, you don't, you know, in your body, you don't fit in society. You don't fit the roles that society has given what you look like. Well, I'll help you look the part. I'll wave a wand and then you'll be who you really want to be. Everyone's going to accept you now.
Yeah, it's basically
it's way more easy to interpret it in that direction. Almost uncomfortably easy.
Yeah, very. Yeah, if you take it to its that sort of logical that extreme, it becomes. If by magic wand you mean surgeon's knife, you know.
Oh dear. Oh
Which-
dear.
We're getting spicy, but Danimal, what do you think?
I don't think ever,
Oh,
which is
that's
why I'm
good.
going to steer clear of this topic.
Oh no, Gebbles.
The fairy godmother is Big Pharma.
Oh, yeah,
Oh.
there you go. Good
Well,
analysis.
also,
Good
on-
analysis.
And on the more surface level, or maybe not surface level, on the more the authorial intent, clearly the fairy godmother is meant to represent this sort of shallow, appearance-driven aesthetic of Hollywood. This idea of, give you cosmetic surgery, make you look the part.
Yeah, so that you'll get the
think
happy
that's-
ending. Like she even
Yes.
says in the movie, ogres don't get happy endings, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you're not
Traditionally good
Hollywoodized
looking.
and
Yes.
perfect, then you won't get a happy ending, right?
Yeah,
Sort of a,
you have image managers, people who make sure you look correct for the big screen. And I think that's a little closer to what's meant by the character.
Yeah, and that's like a famous criticism of Hollywood that's like persistent in the culture.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, and it's in all types of medium too. Like, isn't that what Marilyn Manson's Dope Show is about?
Yeah, I guess.
Almost every movie about Hollywood criticizes this element of it.
Mm-hmm.
to the point where it's almost sort of tongue in cheek.
Yeah.
The fairy godmother can humanize or dehumanize creatures literally with a flick of her wand. Her celebrity
I loved that little bit where for like 30 seconds Pinocchio was in fact a real boy. Like, he's falling in midair and then the wand hits him. Real boy! And then he's like did it in the corner dancing about how happy he is to be a real boy, and then like the magic is undone and he's like
Oh, your audio spiked. We couldn't hear you when you were doing your Pinocchio impression.
It's just too good.
Oh.
Your mic doesn't
It's-
want to pick it up.
Yeah, it's so good.
status, her wealth, and her magic all give her immense power. Shrek and Fiona have an argument about what happened at dinner.
You're behaving like a...
Go on, say it.
like an ogre!
Well, here's a news flash for you. Whether your parents like it or not, I am an ogre.
Fiona seems to believe that they could be accepted if they adapt to society and take care of their ogre optics. In other words, if they stopped acting so much like ogres. This reminds me of respectability politics. The idea that a group's acceptance into society can be achieved if they downplay stereotypes or behaviours that have been associated with them.
It's almost like that's true.
Yeah, that's just straight up true.
yeah, just breaking the stereotype by casting the stereotype aside to show that you are not defined by a stereotype. Which is sort of-
really happens all the time. You have a group.
It'd be like
It's kind of an outlier, but once they kind of find their footing and normalize a bit, they get accepted. And this happens all the time.
do you imagine if someone responded to trying to circumvent racial stereotypes is just respectability politics? Like, can you imagine if somebody said that?
Oh, they do.
Yeah, I can absolutely imagine that. Doesn't
I
Ebernax
can
Kendi say
imagine.
that?
They do.
But, like,
They-
so
about the whole thing about respectability politics is they'll apply it to the worst of stereotypes and say you can't criticize those stereotypes because that's respectability.
like it's like if somebody said, like, I don't know, Jewish people shouldn't like try to break the stereotype of being like covetous and obsessed with money. or
Oh no.
just as an example.
Only
No, like being
Is
funny.
stereotype true? Do you believe that to be true, Tenny? Let's have an intervention here. Let's figure out who we really are.
Jews need to stop living the stereotype of being short, autistic girls with
Obsessed
Pikachu
with
icons.
Pokemon. Yeah.
Oh no!
It's okay.
Are you gonna like
I love
flip
you,
this
Megan,
part out?
and I'm not leaving that in.
Okay.
Doxed.
It wouldn't make sense to anybody anyway,
That's true.
Exactly.
except the people who come here from a certain
Right.
avenue.
Hmm.
But yeah, I mean, this happens all the time. It's Black culture gets a lot of flack from certain social conservative movements, and a lot of the times the response is, you're just engaging in respectability politics. You shouldn't criticize this and that behavior, and it's a real problem in actually trying to address some of the more severe issues. It's bogged down in this argument about respectability politics.
Yeah,
And
it's
it
an
gets-
easy defense to hide behind.
It gets a lot funnier when you notice that a lot of the stuff about respectability politics is coming from white people.
White
Upper-
people.
Rich,
people.
upper middle class, bourgeois, pasty faced, and so on.
This person is pretty pale. I'm gonna just point that out right now. Look at that.
It could be the lighting.
Could be.
I think just
They're also
think
British.
Yeah.
British people tend to be like Tilda Swinton. Like
Oh.
seriously, Tilda Swinton is the whitest single human being on the face of the planet.
I know, she's
Like,
so white,
probably
she's like
is.
translucent. It's crazy.
See all
See-through.
her veins.
If you wanted to, she was the perfect casting idea for the White Witch in the Narnia film
Oh yeah.
because she just looks the part.
One perspective is that assimilation is an important and necessary way for marginalized groups to gain rights. Another perspective, though, is that assimilation only reinforces oppressive institutions. Fiona believes that by acting less like ogres, they have more of a chance of being accepted. She's attempting to compromise, and this kind of compromise is something that many queer people will be familiar with. Many of us downplay our identities, change our behaviors.
But what about Shrek wanting Fiona to live like an ogre? Like, that's not how Fiona grew up. She grew up in this world. It's
Yeah.
a two-way street, sir. Or ma'am. Or they.
They, them.
They, them.
Cancelled.
Zer.
Oh, God, I'm getting canceled. I can hear the sirens.
The police are coming. They're at your door, pounding. Yeah, they kind of touch on this later.
Does he?
On the
Okay.
other, yeah, he does mention the
Or
other
she,
extreme. But did you feel like you had to compromise and hide your? I don't know. How did
Gayness?
how did that play out for you? Did you?
Oh, I just couldn't kiss guys. I just didn't want to kiss guys in front of my parents. I guess that's how that played out. I mean, I've always just been me. Like, I've never just not been me.
It just
It's not
never
like I
occurred-
came out and all of a sudden I'm fucking fabulous and wearing a feather boa and a cut off mesh shirt and booty shorts. Very
That's
specific
not-
Seems
outfit.
very well, they're going to talk about essentialism. But it's kind of essentialist to assume that every gay person who isn't flamboyant or living out this typified queer culture is somehow suppressing something.
Yeah, there's a whole book about it. It's called Velvet Rage, and it's a disgusting book. I fucking hate it.
Velvet Rage sounds like a euphemism for menstruation.
I've been told to read Velvet Rage by pretty much every quote unquote queer that I've had conversations with on the internet and disagreements over. So
Does it have horrible sex stuff in it? Is that what makes it gross?
no, it's just got if you're not a screaming queer that's like on the corner of Sunset Avenue going hello, then you're ashamed of your gayness. Did that hello pick up?
Yes.
Yes.
Perfect.
Like,
Very nicely.
It picked up a lot. Yes.
It picked up many men.
Or if you're not shoving a ton of party drugs in your face, then you're not, that's another part of the book where it's like very much about like, the author like grew up like going to the New York party scene. And surprisingly, his take on gay culture is the party scene in New York. How weird.
So if you're not gay,
rural,
sounds like that you're summarizing the book like if you're not just constantly being debauched, you're not actually gay.
That's kind of it. I'm being a little exaggerating and facetious, but
because that sounds really, really dumb.
That is,
yeah, it's a dumb book. I hate it.
It is some element of the new queer theory stuff, which is we need to have an identity that is distinct from heteronormative culture. And if it's not distinct, you're not politically, it's the whole being politically gay versus not.
Yeah, like what is gay culture?
Black.
There's no gay Israel. Well, I guess San Francisco is gay Israel. But I mean, like what is gay culture?
Also
come on now.
War crimes? What's it called?
Is there a gay
Have you
Hamas?
seen the way they dress? I consider that a war crime.
There
would be a straight Hamas. There's a gay Israel, there's a straight Hamas.
Is it as if it was a gay Hezbollah? Gay jihad.
But yeah, it does seem very isolating to say a rural person who is homosexual and looks at all that stuff and says, "Ew, I don't want to do all that. I just want to chill and watch Marvel movies." And
hey, I don't watch Marvel movies.
Neither do I. I have,
just like normal stuff. Or they want to watch NASCAR. They want to drink beer and just do things that they enjoy and not have to put on this performance.
Now you got me thinking about gay NASCAR.
Yeah, now you got me thinking about beer. I think I'm gonna go grab a beer.
Oh,
isn't gay NASCAR just NASCAR?
Yes.
Or our appearances out of fear or necessity. On the other hand, many of us reject this idea completely, going in the opposite direction, refusing to hide any part of ourselves even if it reinforces negative stereotypes about our group, refusing to compromise or bargain with the society that oppresses us. These two conflicting perspectives are often sources of tension in the LGBT community. As you'll know if you've watched my channel before, many people believe that trans people should make an effort to pass as cisgender in order to be accepted and to save face. Many trans people who don't pass because they don't want to or because they can't are seen as making the trans community look bad.
I thought passing was sort of the goal for at least somebody with gender dysphoria.
What I've heard is like there's different kinds of perspectives on it because obviously very few people can. You have to be gifted with some genetic, let's say, androgyny, and it's easier for women to pass as men than the other way around.
Yeah, I'm glad I'm not the only person who noticed that. Actually,
I mean, it's true because women. There are certain features that are difficult to conceal from a man, like the Adam's apple. You got cheekbone shape, body hair, and hair in general. It's harder to. You have to do some pretty severe surgery if you want to cut that stuff down.
And even now, it hasn't really been perfected yet, from what I understand. Some of the plastic surgery techniques
there's definitely very convincing ones out there. But it costs a lot of money.
Yes,
so much money. It's dangerous too. I mean, people go to Mexico and die because they're trying to get cheaper surgery.
Well, I mean, people go to Mexico and die, regardless of surgery.
True.
Yeah,
that's
sometimes
also
it's
the
Have
fun.
any kind of surgery.
Really,
right?
if you go to
Cosmetic
Mexico,
surgery. Cosmetic
Really-
surgery is a big deal down there. And
really, if you go to Mexico, you're probably going to die anyway. So
yeah,
Mexico.
Aragon can explain that for us.
I'm back.
Well,
I
I
got
guess-
my
the
beer.
cartel. You have a beer, hooray.
I
okay, we're
do.
talking about how you're gonna die if you go to Mexico.
Yeah.
What we're talking about right now.
So
Surgery or
it's-
not.
Oh, okay, perfect. So you were talking about how, like, you know, they just want to kick back and drink a beer. I am drinking a very gay beer, unfortunately.
Ooh, how gay.
Key lime. It is a dry hop sour from Brooklyn Bel Air Sours. It is key lime.
That does sound pretty gay,
It is, yeah.
but potentially good. I'm not much of a beer person myself.
Homophobe.
We just looked at so he was just saying, or she, haha, saying
They.
they were just
They is safe.
saying they is safe. They were just saying that passing or not passing is a big deal in the trans community, and how some consider people who don't pass to be sort of inferior or causing problems.
Are there people that actually say that, or are there people that perceive that?
I don't know, to be honest. I know some people say that's their goal, is to pass.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, that's not reachable for everybody for several reasons.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then there are also people who don't try to pass at all.
Yeah, I know. I'm not going to get into that.
Yeah.
Who is responsible for oppression? Is it the that oppresses? Or is it the person who refuses to make the effort or can't make the effort to integrate into it? How do we fix this? Do we adapt to society, or do we challenge society itself? Harold, for example, has only integrated into mainstream society because the fairy godmother has helped him to assimilate into it. He has completely internalized the fairy godmother's essentialist views about Shrek, that it's in his very nature as an ogre to be aggressive and a brute. This reminds me of those who reject trans people by attributing essentialist characteristics to us, depicting trans men as confused women, and trans women as aggressive, dangerous men invading women's spaces.
Is it the essentialism of being trans, or are they saying essentialist things about sex?
I'm not
Yeah, I was
quite
kind of
sure.
confused on that. Sure. Same.
I'm not sure. I would ask to what extent these stereotypes are necessarily, how prevalent they are, both within and without the trans community, I guess. Because I think when we're talking about stereotypes of any sort, positive or negative, I think it's best to understand the context in which the stereotypes exist. And so, when we're talking about stereotypes, we have to try to grasp the reality of how prevalent a stereotype may or may not be. That's very important because, of course, if a stereotype is overstated or understated, or if it's believed to have a greater or lesser impact than it actually has, that presents a number of problems to actually confronting and ameliorating it. Right?
Mm-hmm.
I guess
I'm picking up what you're laying
confused,
down.
I'm confused where the essentialism is. Is it with the status? Because they're saying, oh, he's an ogre, therefore he's aggressive and a brute. To me, that tracks more closely to a sex essentialist.
Essentializing us is a way of attacking us and denying us the right to be layered, complex, diverse human beings. She uses this and her power in order to manipulate Harold into getting rid of Shrek. She recognizes that an ogre princess and prince is a direct threat to the normative beauty standards that she upholds. Because if ogres can be happy and accepted, then her very function is challenged. She literally sells assimilation, acceptance, and her idea of happiness for a living. Shrek and Fiona threaten her empire and her power to dictate what is normal. Meanwhile, Shrek is having an existential crisis at 4 a.m. Relatable. and he's confronted with the reality that his ogre identity doesn't line up with the happily ever after that Fiona has been sold her whole life. After discovering that Harold hired an assassin to murder him, Shrek is defeated. He's crushed. He starts to consider the possibility that changing himself is the only way to make Fiona happy. He goes to the fairy godmother with this, and her response is brutal. Ogres can't be happy. They aren't in the books, they aren't in the stories. They are simply erased from all media. More ogre representation now! This also hits home pretty hard for me as a trans person. Our representation in media is rare, and even when we are represented, they aren't happily ever afters. We are.
Is it though?
Yeah, is it rare? I feel like I can think of
seems-
like 10 off the top of my head.
It seems like the majority of the connection is just this person saying, as a trans person, ... I relate with this.
Hey,
Right.
Gabbles, did you ever see Priscilla, Queen of the Desert?
I'm not sure.
Oh my God, that's
think
such a fan. So they're a group of drag queen dancers that go around, except one of them is a trans woman. And they travel around, and it's about like their life. And one of the gay men is trying to get to his son that he had from a relationship previously while he was wrestling with coming out and all that kind of stuff. And it's a comedy. It stars, who's the guy that played Agent Smith?
Hugo Weaving.
Hugo Weaving is one of them, and it's a fantastic movie, and it's a very positive portrayal of a trans person who's kind of like the sage, the wisdom, and they actually end up with a partner at the end of the movie, if I remember correctly. It's a very good
Guy
movie.
Pearce is in it too.
Yeah, Guy Pearce is in it. Yeah, he's very young and very attractive.
Oh, it
I will watch that.
has Terrence Stamp in it. Apparently, he was General Zod in
yeah.
the older Superman films.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Holy
and
shit!
he was
true.
Chancellor Valorum in the Phantom Menace.
But anyway, yeah, it's a great movie. I highly recommend it. I like Priscilla, Queen of the Desert.
Do trans people never get happy endings?
Well, it's a movie where they get a happy ending.
Also,
Well, I mean,
I'm reminded.
What kind of massage places do they visit?
Yeah, well, hey. Ooh.
I was going to say, one of the earliest representations of transgender persons in American television was on The Jeffersons. And
Oh yeah, I
this
saw
was
that
back
clip.
in the 1970s, where one of the characters, his old Navy buddy, I think, whom he hasn't seen in years, got a sex change, and they don't recognize each other, because she looks so different now than back when she was in the Navy. And it's from what I recall, it's portrayed fairly sympathetically, and without it certainly doesn't treat it as particularly, degenerate or evil.
Yeah, I feel like this argument fits better with the Hollywood interpretation. Ugly people don't get happy endings because you're not photogenic.
Yeah, it's more of a call out of like vanity culture than it is anything else. Like
Right.
Catwoman, like the plot for Catwoman. Doesn't she fight like a makeup entrepreneur or something? Is that the plot for Catwoman?
I just cut out
Absolutely.
entrepreneur. Just like, doesn't she fight a makeup? Because
I mean,
that is what she
that's
does.
That's what I do. I don't know.
She like
Yeah,
she
she
fights
fights like
a woman who wears a cream.
Yeah. Yeah,
But
no, she
you're
fights
you're
like a
She-
makeup
she gets
entrepreneur.
mad. Yeah, she gets mad at them for, the sort of messaging that they're
Yeah,
giving.
doesn't a cat makes out with her and gives her life? Doesn't that happen in the movie?
Yeah.
I
Burps in
wouldn't- I
her
have no idea.
face. Like it literally like
It
green
wasn't. It
smoke
wasn't
comes
me.
out of the
That's all
cat's
I gotta
mouth.
say.
Yeah.
Wasn't me.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, like life smoke comes out of the cat's
Yeah.
mouth. And, oh god, I gotta watch that movie again.
It's amazing.
Are the antagonists in horror movies or the beat up, or killed. Our representation is either about us being monsters or our suffering. Trans people in Hollywood don't get happily ever afters, just like ogres aren't allowed happily ever afters in Far, Far Away. Before taking the potion that they have stolen from the fairy godmother's factory, Donkey says, "But Shrek, you love being an ogre." And Shrek replies that he does love being an ogre, but he loves Fiona more. Shrek has finally found a partner. He's found someone that loves him, and he's ready to put his identity on the line to keep that connection. He's ready to assimilate. He's ready to lose a core part of his identity in order to keep the relationship that pulled him out of loneliness.
Isn't that, to an extent, sort of selfless? The idea that you would sacrifice such an integral part of your being for the sake of the person that you love more than anybody else in the world?
Yeah. That's
It
a very
is.
masculine
There's
trait, actually.
There's
Very
something
masculine.
beautiful in that, I think. The idea of sacrificing something that you've considered sort of core to who you are in order to allow yourself to continue loving the person that you love and value more than anything else in the world. There's something, I think that sort of, that idea of self-sacrifice is actually quite beautiful.
I think
It
I
is-
disagree, actually,
Okay, go ahead, Gabbles.
because he's removing a part of himself. So Fiona fell in love with that part of himself. So
I think
mean,
it
you
is
just see-
misguided.
yeah, it's really
Mhm.
misguided.
And I
It's
think
like-
the movie ultimately demonstrates that. Right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Well,
He
yeah,
was
because he turns
mistaken.
into Lance from the Surfs.
It's unfortunate. I was also going to say this is another part of the essay where the trans allegory doesn't
Oh.
work. Because he's in his natural state. Donkey says, "Don't you love being an ogre?" He says, "Yeah, I love being an ogre, but I want to keep this connection with this other person." I don't
Oh
know
yeah.
how that maps onto a trans story.
Well, Kav, what would a trans allegory look like? If you were to point to a piece of media and say this is a trans allegory, what elements would you look for?
I think I would look for a person who is in their initial state and they feel there is something wrong with their initial state. They are unhappy with where they are at.
Mm-hmm.
They don't feel where they're at matches their identity, and there's something sort of hidden and underneath, and that they have to find their identity by transforming. And it seems here he's actually rejecting his identity and transforming.
So something like I can think of a few animes that probably have a plot like that.
Yeah, it's the self-actualization
Mm-hmm.
story, and I'm sure there are plenty of movies like that where you have your life, you're going along your normal life, you're just doing what everybody else is doing, and then all of a sudden you realize, you know what, actually I want to be this. I want to break away from
The Matrix.
Yeah. So
The Matrix is a trans allegory.
Matrix is closer, but even that is sort of it gets muddied with the whole you have to wake up to reality thing.
I am curious about the new Matrix because of Lana Wachowski is the one that's making it, right? Lana?
Yeah, and the other one is not, right?
Yeah, the
that's
other one's
weird.
not involved in it. But because Lana went through that transition, I am curious to see. Because Lana's, the other sister is like a nutso, like a TDS, whatever. But like Lana, like what I've seen of Lana, like very down to earth. Like I am curious to see the new Matrix and see how that life experience translates onto film. I am curious in that way.
Yeah.
Translates.
Oh, haha, but I'm a poet and I don't even know it.
Yeah.
Look at what
Yeah.
I put in
guess-
the chat. I have
Wow.
found the
Wait,
Holy Trinity
Uh-oh.
by
What are
the
we
Father, the Son,
this is
and the Holy
blasphemy.
Spirit.
Oh my god. Handsome Shrek, Lance from the Surfs, and Brendan Fraser.
It's the Holy Trinity.
Oh.
Oh, they all had babies.
It's almost the same person.
White, kind of square face.
The human Shrek looks like Lance with Bruce Campbell's chin.
As our guiding spirit, Adam Freded would say to us, inshallah, that the simulation is winking at us.
That's right.
Unfortunately, he doesn't know that in parallel, Fiona's just decided that she would prefer to just be an ogre in the swamp with Shrek. Shrek accepts the simulation, and simultaneously, Fiona lets go of it. The potion changes their bodies. Suddenly they both...
So they're just missing the very blatant... That's Romeo and Juliet. They're both going through with it without knowing the other one's going through with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Romeo and Juliet's pretty queer. Come on now.
Yeah, a boy liking a girl. Gross.
Ugh, gay.
I mean the Franco Zeffirelli version, right?
Oh, the Laz Berman version is obviously the best version of Romeo and
Did
Juliet.
you just say
Laz Gabbles? Yeah, isn't
Did you
that his
just-
name? Laz Berman? Is that not it?
What?
Baz Luhrmann.
Baz Luhrmann, whatever. It's all the same. It's whatever. It's some good
Oh.
European gobbledygook.
Exactly.
Pretty sure he's Australian and number one and number two.
Australian?
Whatever. Australia is
Oh,
just
British.
backwards Europe. It's upside down Europe. Whatever.
Like
Right.
I'm just not a fan of Baz Luhrmann's adaptations because I love period pieces, especially if they're adaptations of like Shakespeare and so on.
Oh, is that the one with Leonardo DiCaprio?
Yes.
Yeah. That was
And
a great
I'm
one. I love that one.
Like I just
kinda
don't
like
care for Baz Luhrmann's adaptations. He tried to. Same thing with like putting rap music in The Great Gatsby. Like, no, don't do that. I
What
don't
about
care
Moulin
about.
Rouge? Moulin Rouge is fantastic.
It has one good song in it.
I have not seen Moulin Rouge. I don't
You don't
really.
love the set pieces and all the colors and the costumes? Come on.
I'm trying not to play into the
I
stereotype.
thought you were homos.
I don't watch movies.
They're just not gay enough.
Yeah, you're not living up to my stereotypes.
Ugh.
I'm assimilating.
Ah, leave it behind your culture, traitor.
I mean, yeah. So it does seem this part of the movie is just the classic misunderstanding. Romeo and Juliet setup. They both come to conclusions that are wrong at the same time.
Yeah, basically.
But they're both the wrong decision, though. That's the thing.
Yeah.
They should have compromised in the beginning. Like maybe don't be so ogre-like while you're with your in-laws, and then when you're at home, you can be as ogre-like as you want. Like that's not a crazy suggestion.
Private and public life.
humans, and they both conform to society's standards. Shrek suddenly finds himself getting a lot of attention from regular people, because in this society, your physical appearance is everything. Once again, underlining how dehumanized Shrek and Fiona are in their ogre forms. Now that Shrek passes as normal and is even basically an archetype of male beauty, people are no longer repulsed at his appearance. They no longer fear him. However, the fact that he's been stripped of that part of his identity means that he has become replaceable.
His chest looks huge when he's like in human form. And maybe it's just the clothes not fitting him as much. Just wanted to point that out.
I want to curl up on it like that little kitten in those Looney Tunes cartoons where that little kitten befriends the big dog. I want to curl up on that chest like that.
It's a good chest.
Is that weird? Is this going to make it on YouTube?
Yes.
Oh, God, no.
Prince Charming now has the opportunity to pretend to be him. Again, not for love, but for status. Just like Lord Farquaad in the previous movie. Shrek rushes to the castle in order to win Fiona back, but when he gets there, the fairy godmother uses her essentialist ideology in order to attack him, reminding him
Never did I think I would hear the phrase essentialist ideology in a video on the internet discussing Shrek 2. I didn't wake up today and think that was going to be on the menu, but here we are.
No matter how much he changes his body, to her, he will always be an ogre. No matter what he looks like, he will always be a freak. Incorrect, wrong,
Just like Lance from the
unworthy.
Surfs.
Bullying Lance.
He looks so much like Lance. He looks so much like him.
Lance looks like if you made a mannequin out of plastic and gave it a toupee. Like if you, Lance looks like a mannequin. He just looks plastic.
He looks like the dollar store version of any action figure. I love it. He's got a fine face. I'm not making fun of his face. He looks like handsome Shrek. He looks like handsome Shrek.
He looks like a less handsome version of handsome Shrek.
He's very handsome. Don't disparage a man's looks. He looks very fine. He's fine. He's no Solomon Rushdie or John Madden, who looks like an action figure you put in the microwave. That man's melting. Well, he's dead now, but
You didn't say
really
Solomon
looks
Rushdie. Did you just
Solomon
say
Rushdie?
the novelist?
Yeah, he's an ugly man. Super ugly.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, yeah.
He's
also
got
old.
a face like lunch meat draped over a pumpkin.
Oh my goodness. He's also not an actor or anything, so it seems a little unfair.
Although he always gets really good, like I mean, I don't know what attractive women, but he's got attractive women around
I
him.
mean, the
That's
Ayatollah of
success.
Iran seemed to be interested in him.
Well,
For other reasons.
Oh.
Hey, money overcomes many things.
Oh, yeah.
Of a happy ending. The fairy godmother accepts people who make the effort to conform and assimilate on a surface level, but she will still use people's identities to attack them. Shrek, Harold, and others like them will never be enough for the fairy godmother. Even when they compromise and attempt to pass as normal, their past is used against them. She is such a fucking turf. The fairy godmother's hate for Shrek and atypical identities is eventually what destroys her. I really like this ending. The fact that the fairy godmother destroys herself with her own spell. It really illustrates this idea that hate is something that attacks you from within. I also find it really sweet that Harold is the one that saves Shrek. Even though he's rejected Shrek the entire movie, when he's put on the spot, he jumps in front of him in order to save him. He knows that freaks need to stick together. And as the end of the film beautifully puts it, atypical deviant identities and bodies are deserving of love, no matter whether they choose to assimilate or not. When Mike Myers, the voice actor for Shrek, was asked what made him want to be a part of the Shrek movies, he replied this: "I loved the whole idea behind the story, which is that you're beautiful. So don't let other people tell you that you're not just because you don't look like the people in magazines."
Which is, yeah, precisely.
yeah.
That's the moral.
That's the entire point of the Shrek movies.
He could
But
have
no, he's
made the
queer.
video just that.
See,
Yeah,
That would have been it up.
it fits way more neatly to a story of someone going to Hollywood, trying to put on pretensions and trying to dress the part, still being rejected because you're just a country bumpkin and no one wants you. And then
By the way,
ultimately deciding that
Precisely.
you can love yourself.
within the quote unquote queer community, there is a high attention paid to like vanity and how you look and all that kind of stuff. And you will see in the stats that there is a higher propensity for things like eating disorders for like gay men or, you know, whatever people, acronym people, all that kind of stuff. And that's usually all kind of tied to vanity and things like that. So I think it's a good message. I don't know where I was going with that. I'm drunk and high.
Got
That's
nice
good.
comment.
So it's a criticism of gay culture.
Yes.
Oh,
More. More of that.
Womp womp.
No matter how much you deviate from the commedia of beauty, you are beautiful.
Uh-oh. Better pause if there's going to be DMCA.
As long as it's beautiful, as long as it's a man and a woman.
Yes.
Just as God intended.
Just
Agreed.
as God, and within the same species, so that's correct. Like,
I will say-
no deviance here.
Pretty much.
In that TikTok thing you sent us in the secret group chat or whatever, there was a really funny bisexual meme where it's like, well, I'm bisexual because it was Adam and Steve, not Adam and Steve. Adam and Eve, not Adam or Eve.
Yes, that's pretty good.
I like that one. That was fine.
Well, did you see what they were wearing? Just fig leaves. Oh,
Yeah. How could you
sultry.
not?
Just asking for it.
Oh.
Oh, dear Buck Angel. Oh, they have a response to Buck Angel. There we go.
What? Where?
Hold
Buck
up.
Angel, where?
Dear Buck Angel and true transsexuals.
Oh
Uh-oh.
dear.
Oh.
Oh dear.
Oh.
What did Buck Angel say something controversial?
Well, you know what Buck Angel says. Buck Angel
What does he
says
say?
that he is female, but
Oh.
transsexual.
Oh.
Like biologically female, transsexual. And
Okay.
that he will always be female biologically.
Which,
That sounds like a
Yeah.
healthy place to be. No?
like,
Is it
that's
He's
Pretty
like a
much the-
trans medicalist, which I think is the
Yeah.
trans
Yeah,
terminology.
the
Yeah.
trans medicalist. True scum, I think is the
True scum, yeah.
is the slur for it.
Buck Angel seems very confident,
Yeah.
very put together.
Very chill.
Yeah.
that's
I mean,
pretty hot.
Down to earth.
TDS aside, but Buck Angel, I
Yeah.
think, is very cool. I would probably hang
Let's
with
see,
Buck
what
Angel.
what other videos you got? Is God dead? Okay. Shane Dawson and accountability. Well, that
Sims
sounds
4 late stage capitalism challenge.
challenge. That sounds really good. Dear Left Tube, non-binary optics and trans medicalism.
Oh, he does a response to quartering. You see quartering, his little half face there.
What?
Where?
Yeah,
Where?
I see weird, inspiring take.
Oh,
and there's
you probably see different thumbnails than I do.
Oh no! Oh, it's okay. So the name of the video is "The Quartering's Garbage Channel Can Inspire You."
I mean,
I bet it can.
There is a
it-
lot of truth in that.
probably would inspire me to lose weight.
Oh, come on. He's not. He's fine. But going after people's looks, man.
Rude.
Yeah.
Quartering,
it's crude.
Quartering seems like a very sweet person. so
He's a
I'm not
very
gonna-
sweet person. He just does too many videos and he's got kind of boring.
I like the podcast that he has with Dankula and the
That is
the-
fun. Yeah.
That is
Salt-
pretty entertaining,
Salt
yeah.
mine or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, incredible.
The
Salt Mine.
Incredible Salt Mine. Tism.
So I
Yeah.
think we should watch the first 30 seconds of this video. I'm gonna share it.
Yeah, sure. Are you dropping it in Discord? Because I'll throw it in the watch together. Or you could throw
Yeah.
it in the watch together. How does watch together work? If I
think
got the
we just-
crown, do I?
temporary room. I'll just paste it.
But I won't have the crown anymore.
That's true.
Oh,
But you know what? Doesn't matter. I'll be
What?
I'll be the queen.
Matters
Freedom
to me.
Tunes.
Aha. Okay.
Freedom Tunes. The story of Freedom Tunes featuring Jordan Peterson.
Okay.
Man, when
Yes.
when Jordan Peterson was in his prime with those 3-piece suits and that totally tight haircut, perfect like stubble beard,
oh yeah.
man, I
Like
wanted
I wouldn't mind,
So
honestly.
yeah.
I just want
Very
to share
attractive,
just
man.
the
Very
first
attractive.
30. Oh yeah. First 30 seconds of this video in honor of our watching a Shrek video. So here we go.
Is Shrek, and that's
Sorry.
a pretty straightforward question. Like, he's an ogre, he lives in a swamp, he doesn't have any friends, so he's not much different from you, roughly speaking. And Shrek 2, which is a very old story, He has to go off to far, far away to meet his new in-laws. It's like a human.
I love Jordan Peterson's face. He's just sort of smiling.
It's like, oh God, what's happening?
Meeting in-laws is a cakewalk, man, but it is not, especially if you're an ogre. And so what does Shrek do? Well, he brings his friend Donkey. And why is that? Why is it that he's always hanging around with a donkey? Well, because when you're an ogre who spends all of your time in the swamp, your only friend is going to be an ass.
So there you go.
Why does it?
The first time I saw that.
It's so you can. He does a little more later in the video. That's just the intro. But if you want to watch it, the Story of Freedom Tunes on the Michaela Peterson podcast.
All right.
Yeah, I disagree a lot with Seamus, but he's a funny dude.
He's super funny.
That is brilliant.
It sounds like Irish Shaggy from.
Yes, and Peterson even says, "I sound very Irish in your impersonation." He's like, "Oh no, I ruined the Canadian accent," but there you go.
Good morning to your
Analysis of Shrek, and Shrek 2.
Who does she got in posters in the back there? Dirty Harry, Johnny Cash, and then I can't tell who that other one is.
That's a
lion.
No, the other
there's one to the very left.
Yeah, the guy on the left, a Dirty Harry.
Can't see it.
I think it's Shrek. I think it's Handsome Shrek.
It could be Handsome Shrek.
Muhammad Ali.
Maybe it's Brendan Fraser.
I'd get a poster of Handsome Shrek, and I wouldn't need anything to stick it to the wall. Let me tell you that.
Oh no,
that's a bit much.
Talking about my semen that would come out of my penis from looking at it.
What? I couldn't. I didn't catch that the first time.
See, jokes are better when you explain them. See,
exactly.
I was talking about yeah. Hey, that was infinitely funnier.
Yeah.
Let's analyze it.
Yeah.
Let's analyze this joke. How does it represent male
How is it
hegemony?
trans?
Let's analyze.
Is it queer culture?
Animals' semen.
Taste test.
A lot of strong swimmers there. I'm just taking a guess, but I'll bet you.
Computer enhance.
Nothing but I shoot nothing but Michael Phelps all over the place.
What is this
conversation
evolved into? What is this conversation evolved into?
So I think now is a good time to share our art.
Oh yeah. It's supposed to share.
So let's share our art.
Holy shit.
a little preview of what's going on Saturday. Help me.
Why is he bleeding from the armpits?
This is shading. I mean, maybe it's blood. Who knows?
All right. Who's next? Tenny. I vote Tenny next.
I'm going to go next. Okay, I spent like 10 minutes, not even like that much time as paint.
Flag on Shrek.
We have a classic profile with the famous quote. What are you doing in my swamp?
Does Shrek sound like Jordan Peterson?
What are you
doing in my swamp? Oh, fuck.
What are you doing in my swamp, Kermit?
I'm rainbow connection.
I'm here to fuck your bitch.
I love Kermit. He's so perfect. He's a perfect being.
All right, who's next?
Gabbles, you want to go?
Okay.
No!
What?
Oh no!
Oh no! Do I have to censor this?
Is he taking a shit?
That's okay. I already made one.
Oh no! All right, let me throw mine up there.
No.
Let's see. Hang on, let me find it. It's not degenerate. If that's what you're thinking. I know that's my MO.
Gabbles, what are his hands?
That's
What?
Too good.
A little butthole on Donkey.
Yeah.
And that's our beautiful Shrek art. Look at that.
Oh, we're such good artists.
He's fucking donkey. We all know it.
That's the real queer culture.
That truly is.
That's the gay aesthetic.
Gay aesthetic. Having a friend who's an ass.
Well, are we saying goodbye, boys?
Do we want to say our final thoughts?
No more thoughts, only Shrek. Shrek is loved. It's all over now.
Maybe you all more or less agree with me. I didn't think it was bad. I think it was
it was fine.
surface level.
Like I said, I think it's silly. I think it's silly to do like a film theory analysis of something like Shrek. I think it's just silly.
I agree. It's just kind of it's kind of narrow and surface level, and I guess the whole message that the person was going for could be applied to stuff outside of what they were going for, like different lenses and so on.
It would have been better as a video of just this is what Shrek means to me, and this is what I see in Shrek and I enjoy. It would have been better as a video like that instead of
there was a little bit of that, but I think it sort of got lost in the film analysis section.
Yeah.
Like if it was just a personal video about why I love Shrek, then that would have made a lot more sense.
I want to watch videos about why people love Shrek. That'd be great.
Honestly, I love Shrek just because it's hilarious. It's a damn funny movie.
And relatable. And I think you said, Tennyson, it is a relatable story. It's the story of the outcast who has to wrestle with being yourself and also finding acceptance and the balancing act that is. And that's something everybody deals with because that's the reality of living in any kind of society. You have to negotiate those tensions.
Really, Shrek is about a fundamental aspect of the human condition. Learning to interact with other people versus being alone. It's about Shrek's about forming a real relationship with someone, regardless of how they look on first blush.
So, Gabbles, you were telling me before we recorded that Shrek is your all-time favorite movie, that you actually stopped watching movies because of Shrek, because nothing could ever live up to it. And Shrek 2, and you said that when they stopped the Shrek franchise that you were in a deep depression, you almost killed yourself. Why is Shrek so important to you?
I just really like Mike Myers movies. It's the only way I can live, honestly. It's what got me through my cocaine habit. It's what got me through the car crash, the Holocaust.
Gotta laugh.
I think it's safe to say that we pretty much said all we wanted to say, right?
Yep, I think so.
I think so, yeah.
But it was good.
Yeah.
It was interesting, at least.
So, what's on the agenda for next time? Want to give the audience a little preview?
Well, Saturday, we're inviting some special guests. It's going to be a slightly bigger panel. We are covering a controversy within the furry community. In particular, and it's going to be gross.
Yeah, it's not for the faint of heart, I think, but that's all we'll give away for
gross,
now.
But hopefully we will all be very triggered and scream at the screen some.
I dry heaved while watching one of the videos that we're going to cover. Literally dry heaved. So, yeah, it's going to be a good one.
Well, folks, tune in next time. Same bat time, same bat channel.
That's right. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Adieu.
Adieu.